Brett Lee from Caldwell Banker. New signs, out with the old, in with the new.
I'm Connor McMenamin. I'm a senior on the cross country and track and field team, and this is 5 Questions With. Well, steeplechase is one of those events that we don't have as many kids in them per se, like compared to like the 5K or the 10K. And I guess for the most part, heading into my freshman year, I had run the 2 mile in high school, which is kind of comparable, except you don't have the water barriers, you don't have the hurdles. So I decided to talk to Coach Donner and Coach Knight, who's one of the assistant coaches that works with steeplechase specifically. And I said, hey, I think I want to be a steeplechaser. And did a couple practices, had a couple falls here and there, but overall I thought it was a really cool event. And then, I was able to get into like the mindset of I could actually run with this. And from freshman year, when I went to the Patriot Leagues and had a surprise like runner-up finish, I was just like, oh, this is something that I can definitely run with. So I was really excited to definitely get involved into that. And I guess like preparing for the steeplechase is one of those interesting events where you just know it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt a lot more than like any other race. Like at least in like a 5K or 10K, you have at least some expectation of around like 6 or 7K, or depending on where you are in a 5K, usually after 2 miles, the race begins. But in steeplechase, it's one of those events where every single hurdle matters. And if you fall asleep for 1 second on a hurdle or on a water jump, someone can gap you really quickly. So you definitely have to be on your feet at all times and you have to be ready for anything. And when that move is made, you just gotta be ready and hold on. Well, I definitely think that the biggest mantra that we've had is there will be another time that we will race and we will wear the Bucknell colors. Whether it's now, whether it's later, or whether for some of us it's never. It's just the idea that as a sport, it's not like we have to have an organized like setting to do it. We can still run every day and still be there for each other. And also it's definitely just the culture. Over my 4 years, our culture has improved tremendously where we hold each other accountable and we're not afraid to say, hey, come and run with me, or we're gonna meet up at 7:30 or 9:30 in the morning, or even double in the afternoon. And I definitely think that having that imbued sentiment of we just gotta keep working for that next opportunity because we never know what each day brings definitely has us keep going forward. Probably, most people do know, but I'm a huge baseball statistics junkie. I love baseball. Like if there was another sport where I could actually like do the whole hand-eye coordination and like actually hitting or like throwing, I would totally have played baseball. So, obviously a lot of people know that, but I can just like off the top of my head just bring up like most random statistics or like things about like certain players in certain eras. Some people find it obscure, but I think it's really cool, and you wouldn't necessarily know that just looking at me and being like, oh, he loves baseball kind of thing. I guess for like economics, it's just like there's so much going on in the world, and especially with like how like the inner workings of like economies to one another from like one state to another. I think it's very interesting, and I also think that it very much determines our everyday life. So even though on an international scale it might seem like, oh, it's pretty big, like there are these institutions in Europe, there are these Latin American like organizations that are doing something, and how that affects my everyday life, whether or not I know it, is something that I've always just found to be incredibly interesting. And I think that analyzing like both the interactions of people but also like past events is something that's pretty cool to look at. I can think of 2 races, and I can't really narrow each one down because it's just kind of like the significance of both races. When I PR'd in the 5K at Boston this past year, I was in a race where I PR'd by a lot and just missed the top 10, but the guys who won the race ran like 13:48, so they were lapping me. But I was so far behind everybody, but still on pace running really fast that I didn't even know it. And I was just like in the back of this group thinking, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to catch up to everybody. And then all of a sudden, like with like 1,000 meters to go, like 6 guys came like running back to me, and I'm like, I actually can be in this race. And I somehow was able to like finish like in the middle of the field, and that was like just mind-boggling for me that I could still run fast even though I was behind everybody, and I was just like, oh, this is not going to be a good race. And you know, there's sometimes where you just have dark thoughts in a race and you're just like, you just want to give up because it's just so easy, but I just kept believing, and I think that was definitely like a big breakthrough moment. And I guess the other big race was my sophomore year for steeplechase. I hadn't run really well for indoors and cross country. I had ended pretty poorly with some nagging injuries. And there was just this moment in the race where I think I was in like 6th place with 600 meters to go. And I just remember thinking like, I've come this far and have made all these sacrifices, and I was runner-up last year. Why not do something? And I think in that last lap, I passed like 4 people, and I was just like, feeling it. It's just like a high that I can't explain, like where I was able to pull that energy from, but it was just like a wavelength that I just wanted to keep riding on for like the rest of the year. And I definitely think that that was like a huge breakthrough moment as well.